In this episode, I ponder on how short-term interactions change our behaviours. Welcome to Monologues by Hassie. Not too long ago, as I was nearing the end of my lease, a friend asked me why I cleaned the window. And for context, I lived in a studio and I had two sources of light coming into my apartment. There was a door going to the balcony and a big window next to it. And they said it made a lot of sense that you keep this place clean. Obviously, you have people over, you have friends and visitors and family coming through, but that window didn't need to be cleaned. You're about to lose your lease in a month, and that window was probably dirtier than it is now. So what was the purpose of going to the effort of giving it a deep clean? And I said, well, yes, I'm going to lose this place, and the landlord doesn't care because it's going to be knocked down. But I'm going to be living here for the next month, and therefore I want a clean window. And that window meant I could clearly see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And so this got me thinking about how many things work in this world when people believe that they are in some sort of short-term situation. It could be a relationship, it could be a job, a contract, and sometimes it is true that these things are short-term. And the general drive is to neglect it to a certain degree, to take what you can and never worry about those small things. And I think when I was asked the question, why did you clean the window? The rationale behind that question when I look into it is, why are you doing this for somebody else? You do not own this property. A lot of my friends said you're one of the best tenants that has lived here, or we'd love to put you into one of our rental properties because of the way you looked after this place. And they were viewing it from the frame that I was doing this for the benefit of the landlord. But I wasn't. I was doing this for myself. Like I said, the reason I cleaned the window is so I personally could look out and see the Sydney Harbour Bridge, see the Opera House, see my tiny little glimpse of water into Sydney Harbour and the Domain. This was for myself. But the way other people perceive it, when there is a very short-term window for you to partake in some sort of transaction, be it where you are living, where you are working, somebody you are engaging with, people always wonder why go to the extra effort. Now, I agree that there is a point, a law of diminishing returns, where you don't want to do things. For example, I didn't like the grout in my bathroom. If I went and regrouted my bathroom, that would have been excessive. Again, considering I was down to my last month, that would have been absolutely stupid. But there are so many things I think we take for granted, things that are quite small, like cleaning a window, that it is a high effort thing. It is not part of your standard house clean. I would vacuum, right? I'd clean the kitchen, spray a surface down. But cleaning a window takes a bit more effort. I have to spray the window to both sides, maybe use some newspaper to make sure there's no streaks. I then need to remove the fly mesh and clean behind that. And it is a laborious process, but at the end of it, I had a perfectly clear window I could look out of. And so this really applies to the way I treat many things. In that even if I'm somewhere for not a long period of time, the perception that people have of actions that I might take, they might think, what an idiot for putting this effort in. But I'm generally doing it for myself. Because there are many situations in our life which are much like that window. It may seem like a bit more effort from the outside, but ultimately the beneficiary is you. And I find myself in this situation right now in other aspects of my life. I am in a short-term work contract. I only have a few weeks left. It is probably time where I could kick my feet up and do absolutely just do my job, not think too much. And to a certain degree, I guarantee you on my last day, I won't think of the problems beyond the day after that. But in my last few weeks, I'm really thinking about what can I wrap up? What's something that has irritated me that I haven't had a chance to fix that I can fix? And people might look at that and say, why would you do that for a company where you don't even have stability. You had a 1-year contract, half of that which you spent in probation, and now your contract's coming to an end. But what people don't realize is many of these things I do are not only high leverage in terms of what they achieve for the company, but they're also high leverage for me. I'm learning how to use AI, for example, in ways that are more mechanistic than prompting a chat window. I'm setting off agents which speak to other sub-agents and orchestrate work and raise PRs. I'm actually building something which I can then take that skill and apply it literally anywhere, versus the perspective of I'm just going to do the bare minimum or do what's asked of me and be out of there. That is like me sitting in my bed in my former studio, which has now been knocked down or in the process of being knocked down to become a hotel. That is like me saying, you know what, I'm just going to live with the dirty window. It's not my window. And by doing that, failing to enjoy the view of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And so that is really what I wanted to speak about today, is that we have so many situations, and I think a lot of people don't realize this. People think that there are many interactions you will have, be it with individuals, be it at work, be it in your own home environments or public spaces, where they believe because that interaction is of short-term nature that they will let the window be dirty. And as a result of that, they actually miss the benefits for themselves because they're so concerned about not providing too much value to the landlord, for example, or the company, or somebody you've met in passing. They're so afraid of giving too much that they fail to realize that many of these small things that we can do, and of course, like I said, within reason, there are unreasonable things. There are limits to what you should do in a short-term interaction. But there are many things that you can do that actually create a far greater benefit to yourself than what somebody else may gain. My landlord didn't really benefit from me cleaning the window. They knocked that building down. That window would have been popped out and thrown into the trash. But for that month after I cleaned it, and the many months I cleaned it before, I was the beneficiary of being able to see out into Sydney Harbour. And so I'll leave this episode here with the prompt of, what is your dirty window? What is something that you can do that is going to help you enjoy something that you've been putting off because you believe somebody else might benefit more? And so with that, I wish those of you who are listening to this great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.